There's been a great deal of talk about the Trump versus Casa decision at the Supreme Court. This, as you know, is the decision that put restrictions on universal injunctions against Trump administration policies issued by federal Judge James Boasberg while Boasberg was wearing a cardboard Burger King crown and spinning around the room with his black robe flung out as if it were a pair of wings and simultaneously singing, "Look at me, mother, I am the ruler of the universe, everyone look at me." The court decided 6-3 along ideological lines that Boasberg should not only quit with the injunctions, but also possibly see a mental health professional or at least turn down the volume in order to stop disturbing the neighbors. Boasberg responded to the decision by sitting curled up in a corner and sucking his thumb while still wearing the Burger King crown and muttering, "I don't care what they say, I'm the ruler of everybody," but in a much softer voice so the Supreme Court wouldn't hear him and take his cardboard crown away and make him go to bed early. The court's decision was written by Justice Amy Coney Barrett, and much of the media attention focused on Barrett's comments about a dissenting opinion written by Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. Many felt that Barrett's response to Jackson's dissent was derogatory, disdainful, humiliating, sardonic, mocking, derisive, sarcastic, belittling, disparaging, denigrating, contemptuous, taunting, and even humiliating. And I know I already said that, but it was so derogatory, it was actually humiliating twice, and possibly vice versa. Now, part of the reaction to Barrett's comments might have arisen from the fact that during her confirmation hearing, Barrett answered questions with so much precision and expertise that it gave the impression that she's a highly intelligent woman and also kind of hot in a wonk girl, Catholic mom sort of way. Whereas at her confirmation hearing, Ketanji Jackson couldn't even say what a woman is, giving the impression that she was a DEI hire selected because she's a black woman without taking into account the fact that she's also a functional idiot. But here at the Andrew Klavan Show, we feel we should take Justice Jackson's dissent seriously because, that would be funnier. So after spending a great many minutes reading the dissent in depth, I'm not sure exactly how many minutes, but it was a lot, maybe 10 even. I lost count, around 6 or 7. But anyway, after spending a great many minutes studying Justice Jackson's dissent, I have some important observations. Jackson dissents to the court's decision on the grounds that it hides behind a quote-unquote smokescreen of legalese by comparing the issues involved in the case to legal precedents in American and English jurisprudence. Instead of this process, sometimes known as applying the law or judging, Jackson proposes a different standard called the sassy black woman test. In this test, also known as the Jasmine Crockett standard, all court decisions and other forms of reasoned discourse must be able to withstand a black woman putting her fist against one upraised hip and saying completely incomprehensible things in an aggressive sing-song voice while leaving the G's off the endings of her words and using foul language to declare herself entitled to be heard despite the fact that she's obviously a functional idiot. Furthermore, if said sassy black woman ends said tirade with the words "full stop," any disagreement will immediately be deemed racist, even if it can be shown that it's not her skin color that's at issue, but only her functional idiocy. Justice Jackson also writes in her dissent, quote, and this is a real quote, "A Martian arriving here from another planet would see these circumstances and surely wonder, what good is the Constitution?" Unquote. This, of course, is a reference to the famous Martian clause in the founding documents of planet Zibi-Gununu in the Ratchet and Clank Solana galaxy, which declares that the opinions of fictional extraterrestrials should be given priority because, honey child, these space aliens are way smarter than a fool like you, full stop. All in all, I think we can agree that the Jackson dissent is a mind-bogglingly deep dissent, if you spell dissent D-E-S-C-E-N-T. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show. All right, we are back laughing our way through Making America Great Again, wherever you are watching the show, whether it's on DailyWire Plus, where you should be watching it and subscribing, or on YouTube, where you can get it with, commercials and words blotted out and things like that. Or even if you're just dreaming that you're watching the show while sitting alone in your room, you want to leave a comment wherever you are, even in your dreams. And if the comment is, racist, sexist, just an offense to God and man in every possible way, we will read it on the show because it'll fit right in with the rest of our content. Today's comment comes from Paul Cook 3613. He says, if my vote has any meaning at all, the Trump happiness montage has worn out its usefulness and humor. And I'm really glad, Paul, you brought this up because, sometimes because I'm an artist, sometimes as an artist, I will set myself a difficult task simply to bring out excellence, because sometimes when artists are put in restrictions like a sonnet form or something, it makes them better as artists. So sometimes I will give myself a difficult task. And today, Donald Trump has been on such an amazing winning streak, a just insane winning streak, not just this week, but for several weeks, really, maybe for a couple of months now. One of the greatest winning streaks of any president, certainly in this century and maybe in the last century as well. It's just been incredible. So I set myself the task of doing the entire show with absolutely no Trump happiness montage. Just leaving. I mean, first of all, obviously the joke, as you say, it has worn out its usefulness and humor, and it's just so tempting to use it again and again that I'm not going to do it. So we won't play it at all this show, and we'll just get to today's episode: how we should think about America. Let me begin by saying this. I usually try to give you tomorrow's news today. By taping the show. I tape the show on Friday when the news of the week is mostly done. But since the July 4th holiday is coming, I should tell you that I had to tape earlier this week, not because of me, but my staff. They're weak. They're just weak. They want to do things like spend time with their families and, take some time off, have a barbecue. God knows what else. I have no idea what they do. But I would just work the weekend through. But we had to tape very early. So by the time I give you tomorrow's news today, I may be giving you yesterday's news tomorrow. But anyway, let us start the show.
We're going to win so much. We're going to win at every level. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We're going to win economically. We're going to win with the economy. We're going to win with military. We're going to win with healthcare and for our veterans. We're going to win with every single facet.
Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-yay. My, oh my. What a wonderful day.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. Yay! You'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore.
I feel pretty, oh so pretty. I feel pretty and witty and gay.
We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
It's been a while since I've been fishing, but I've spent a lot of my life out on the water with a rod and reel of various different kinds. One of my favorite times was up in Alaska, fishing for just some wonderful fresh fish. I can't get up there now, but I can get Wild Alaskan Company. They deliver the best wild-caught seafood straight to your home. Each portion is perfectly sized in 6-ounce portions and packed with nutrients you won't find in regular store-bought fish. Once you taste the difference, you will never go back. Their fish is 100% wild-caught, never farmed, which means you're getting pure seafood with no antibiotics, GMOs, or additives. These pristine fish support both healthy oceans and fishing communities while delivering exceptional flavor. I've tried them. I love them. It's really good. It is good fish. Plus, each catch is flash frozen right on the boat to preserve its natural taste, texture, and beneficial omega-3s. When you join Wild Alaskan Company, you're not just getting extraordinary seafood, you're supporting sustainable harvesting practices in Alaska while enjoying flexible deliveries and expert cooking guidance that makes every meal special. Not all fish are the same. Get seafood you can trust. Go to wildalaskan.com/Klavan for $35 off your first box of premium wild-caught seafood. That is wildalaskan.com/Klavan for $35 off your first order. Thanks to Wild Alaskan Company for sponsoring this episode and for teaching all of us how to spell Klavan. It's Klavan. Chapter 1, Too Much Winning. Let us take a look at what Trump has been doing. Trump bombed Iran's nuclear facility and got a ceasefire between Iran and Israel, which is still holding. He had two major victories in the Supreme Court. No more of these universal injunctions. Those were curtailed, which was very important. NATO upped its defense spending, which is something very, very, very important, because they have to take care of themselves as well as us helping them out. The stock market has hit record highs. Tariffs are bringing in tremendous income to the country with inflation at 2%. Remember, which the tariffs were going to destroy the economy and the markets were terrible and inflation was going to skyrocket. So none of that has happened. The University of Pennsylvania has agreed to wipe out make-believe woman swimmer Leah Thomas's unfair victories, apologize to the real ladies who really won and change the record books and give them their trophies. Today, just as I was leaving to come to work, the CBS made a settlement on that. Remember that Kamala Harris interview that they skewed? So that's essentially it's going to end up around somewhere between $16 and $30 million settlement for basically trying to finagle the election, which is admitting that that's what they were doing. Whether they admit it or not, that is admitting that's what they're doing. And he's seems to be on the verge of a ceasefire in Gaza. I mean, this is an incredible, right? This is an incredible record. I'm reading this over. He even negotiated a peace deal between Congo and Rwanda. This is hardly even mentioned. Now, I don't want to overdo it because a lot of the fighting between Congo and Rwanda is done by independent militias. So maybe the ceasefire won't hold, but it does give us a foothold in there to use their rare earth minerals, which will give us a stake in that game. And the Congo is what movie actresses who want to pretend that they know anything, like their yoga teachers, mentioned that there's horrible travails and suffering in Congo, and now he stopped that war. That's a 30-year-old war. And as I am speaking to you, obviously, as I say, we're taping early. The Senate has passed the big, beautiful bill. It's with the House. As I drove past the House, the Congress today, it was packed, and they're obviously arguing that. And Mike Johnson says he's going to push this thing through. And the big, beautiful bill, I would say it's beautiful, but it has a nice personality. It's not as bad. The Democrats are saying it cuts too much money and it's bad for the poor because it cuts entitlements. But it actually does. It makes the Trump tax cuts permanent, which is good. It ups the spending for the military and for ICE, which is good, builds the wall. It doesn't cut Medicaid. They keep saying it cut Medicaid, but it doesn't. It slows its growth. That's what a cut means in Washington. When they say they cut a program, they mean it's growing a little bit slower. It's put in some eligibility requirements, which I think are important so people won't rip it off. I think it's going to prevent, all of this could change as the House and Senate negotiate their way forward, but it's going to keep illegals off. And so Elon Musk is threatening to primary anyone who votes for it and start a third party. He just always amps. Everything is at like 12 with that guy. But, Musk is the richest man who has ever lived. And he loses some of his subsidies in the bill and the EV mandate, which of course would help his business. And my feeling is you're the richest person who's ever lived. You do not need subsidies. I've always felt this way about it. And Trump was asked if he would deport Elon, and he deadpanned and said he was looking into it. And then he said, there's a cut too.
We might have to put Doge on Elon. You know what Doge is? Doge is the monster that might have to go back and eat Elon. Wouldn't that be terrible? He gets a lot of subsidies, Peter. But Elon's very upset that the EV mandate is going to be terminated. And you know what? When you look at it, not everybody wants an electric car. I don't want an electric car. I want to have maybe gasoline, maybe electric, maybe a hybrid, maybe someday a hydrogen. If you have a hydrogen car, it has one problem. It blows up.
You could just see he's very confident. He's riding on top of a wave here. And I love the deadpan joking. It's really great. And the press is kind of getting used to it. They stop quoting every joke he makes as if it were a serious declaration. Now, I don't think he should deport Elon. Elon is a good guy and is a very important American, and I don't want to run him down. I just think he's wrong I think he's overdoing about this. He doesn't really understand politics and the compromises you sometimes have to make in politics. But I do think we should start talking about some of these news people instead of suing them. I think we should start to deport some of these news people. I want to play you because I only want to play this because it's so amazing that if it hadn't come from Newsbusters, a site I trust, I would have thought it was AI made to make the press look more biased and corrupt than they are. I actually, when I looked at it, I thought I gotta look at this carefully, make sure the mouth moves, is moving with the words and all this stuff. But at Newsbusters, you know that it's going to be good. Here's the way David Muir on ABC News reports the big, beautiful bill, and pay attention closely to the language he uses. Cut 3.
At Capitol Hill tonight, Senate Republicans trying to push through President Trump's massive tax cut benefiting wealthy Americans and the president's cuts affecting health coverage for more than 11 million Americans. Food stamps and college aid affected as well. Tonight, some critics in his own party defying the president, refusing to support it. One senator saying he won't run again. And Elon Musk again warning against this bill now threatening Republicans who vote for it.
Now, I'm serious here. Like when he says, tax cuts for the richest Americans. If you cut everybody's taxes, the people who pay most taxes are rich people. They pay a lot of taxes, and a large percent of the taxes. I mean, at a certain level, you get like 50% of the taxes. So they're going to get the big savings, but the tax cuts are for everybody, and especially families, working families. There's all these no taxes on tips. I'm going to ask my publisher to not give me an advance anymore, just give me tips. Here's the book. And thank you. Good. It's a good book. I'll give you a good tip. And, no tax on overtime, which is not going to affect billionaires very much. They don't work by the hour. But I just want to compare this. And this is why I think David Muir should be deported. There must be some law that can be used to get rid of him. But this is how they covered Joe Biden's massive COVID spending bill, which helped set off the massive inflation that Trump has brought under control, right? This is how Norah O'Donnell covered that. Cut 4.
The scope of the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, which takes up more than 600 printed pages, is unprecedented. In the coming weeks, tens of millions of Americans will receive $1,400 stimulus checks. Unemployment benefits will be expanded, and the cost of health insurance under Obamacare lowered. Analysts say the bill, which passed without a single Republican vote, will also dramatically cut poverty nationwide, funding programs for food aid and housing assistance, and offering tax credits for children.
Is that amazing? It's going to cut poverty nationwide. And I must have blinked and missed that when poverty was cut nationwide. How these people sleep at night, I do not know. I seriously don't. I'd like to think that they're just AI creations, that they have no conscience or anything like that. But this is what's going on as Trump kicks ass and takes names. And not only that, Joe Biden, or whoever was operating Joe Biden's mouth behind the scenes, Joe Biden was always bragging about how many things he got passed. And I always thought, yes, but are they good things? These are things that will actually seriously help the country. And as for the court decisions, hysteria, all this hysteria over court injunctions. The Ketanji Brown Jackson is worth reading. Her dissent is worth reading because it's just hilariously hysterical. But, as Justice Barrett pointed out, they don't want an imperial presidency, but they do want an imperial court. And the thing is, they didn't want this before. Justice Kagan, who was by far the smartest of the liberals on the court, 3 years ago, this is what she said. This is cut 5.
It just can't be right that one district judge can stop a nationwide policy in its tracks and leave it stopped for the years that it takes to go through a normal process.
Can't be right, but suddenly it is right because the president changed. So that reveals a lot about her and how straightforward she is in her interpretations of the Constitution. But they have no shame. They have no shame. It's easier to live. It must be easier to live. Maybe I shouldn't ask how they sleep at night. If you have no shame, it's probably easier to sleep at night. And it isn't true, by the way, that the court has turned pro-Trump. And it isn't really true. The right wing is kind of complaining that the judges are selling out. I don't think that's true either. But Kagan was on the majority of decisions 70% of the time in non-unanimous outcomes. So she's doing fine. She hasn't got anything to complain about. So these were all major victories. And the Trump doctrine, meanwhile, is becoming clear, or at least it's becoming clear now to anyone who hasn't been listening to the Andrew Klavan show, where I made it clear several months ago. Walter Russell Mead from the Hudson Institute, very smart guy, and you can tell he's smart because just this week he finally caught up with what I've been telling you. He's talking about the fact that Trump is not an isolationist. He hates war, but he is very aggressive in his use of economic might and economic power to convince, and that he's using all these things to rejigger the worldwide economic system so that we can stand up to Russia and China. this bombing of Iran was essentially an attack on a cat's paw of Russia and China. Trump knows that these are the competitors. And instead of, everyone was making fun of the guy at NATO, the Mark Rutte, Secretary General of NATO, who called him daddy. He was making a joke about him being daddy. But Trump has been the opposite of daddy. Daddy, stands aside and lets the kids excel, and he puts their needs first. And Trump is done with American paternalism. Trump is like now saying, no, you guys have to defend yourselves, have to be ready to pay to defend yourself so that we can fight. If it comes to a fight between Russia and China and us, we have allies who actually have armies. That is what he's doing. He's planning ahead. He's planning ahead for the moment when the Chinese say, "Oh, you want to get in a war? We're not going to sell you the bullets." And we say, "Oh, you know what? Maybe we should have planned a supply chain that didn't go through the China supply chain." So all of this stuff is coming to pass while the old guard just whines and complains that their old ways are being taken away from them. It's just a true attempt to return to American greatness, where we have a lot of power in the world, and we're ready to defend ourselves, and if need be, run to the aid of our allies. He wants to set up a situation where our allies can fight in their territory, where Israel can fight in the Middle East, where, the British, if there still is a Britain, and France can fight in Europe, and Japan can fight in the East. But when the time comes that it becomes a bigger war than that, we can also be part of it. So I just wanted to review that because it's so unbelievable. And all you're hearing about is about the next problem. And all you hear about is what could possibly happen if something goes wrong. If you watch the news, that's all you hear. Well, this could possibly lead to that, or that, they're writing about the future. So I want to say this, and I just want to point out to the commentator, Paul, he's absolutely right. The Trump happiness montage has worn out its welcome. It's worn out its humor. And we really shouldn't play it, but I just can't help it.
We're going to win so much. We're going to win at every level. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We're going to win economically. We're going to win with the economy. We're going to win with military. We're going to win with healthcare and for our veterans. We're going to win with every single facet.
Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-yay. My, oh my. What a wonderful day.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. Yay! You'll say, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore.
I feel pretty, oh so pretty. I feel pretty and witty and gay.
We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
So these last few nights, I have barely slept at all. And, sometimes my wife says, what are you thinking about when you lie awake? And I just say, I'm thinking about just how comfortable this Helix sleep mattress is. It's so comfortable. I don't want to fall asleep. I just want to be awake to enjoy every moment of comfort on my Helix sleep mattress. One thing I've loved about this mattress is how well it does with temperature regulation, which really eases some of those annoying middle of the night wake-ups. That's essential as the temperatures continue to warm up and we head into summer. If they get any warmer where I am, I'll simply just catch fire. Plus, it's easy to connect your mattress to other wearable devices so you can actually see the data to back up your sleep improvements each night. No more questioning. What makes Helix different is they don't just sell you a random mattress. They actually match you with the perfect one for your body and sleep style. Whether you're a side sleeper, back sleeper, or a non-sleeper like me, they have got you covered. All you have to do is take their sleep quiz and find your ideal match. And trust me, when you find the right match, you'll wonder how you ever slept or lay awake on anything else. Right now is actually the perfect time to upgrade your sleep because Helix is offering a fantastic 4th of July sale. Go to helixsleep.com/Klavan to get 27% off site-wide. That's helixsleep.com/Klavan for 27% off site-wide. Make sure you enter our show's name after checkout so they know we sent you. helixsleep.com/ how do you spell it? Klavan. No E's in Klavan. I just make it look this easy. Chapter 2, how should we feel about capitalism? This is a really important topic. And, July 4th is coming out, and I'm sort of looking at the holiday coming up. And so I want to talk about some, general evergreen things about the country as we go forward and as we celebrate the country. And I'll talk about that more in a little bit. But another big victory for Donald Trump in the last few weeks was the elevation of Zoran Mondani to be the Democrat candidate for New York mayor. And this is to watch this is why I love politics. This is one of the things I love about politics. The position it puts the Democrat Party in is highly comical and also kind of terrifying, which is kind of what sums up politics in a nutshell. But he's now been elevated. A bunch of young people showed up, a bunch of Muslims showed up, a bunch of, the college grads, the rich people showed up for this guy who is an avowed socialist and clearly an anti-Semite and a terrorist supporter. I mean, clearly is. I'll show you in a minute. But so now the Democrats, who have spent all this time going out of their way to keep Bernie from becoming the nominee, which he probably would have been one of these last two elections, they kept him from, because they feel. Then they elevated Joe Biden. Remember, they elevated Joe Biden when Joe Biden was virtually out of the race because they're terrified that these new left-wing communists will alienate the entire country. While the young people are saying, no, just bring these communists out and the people will flock to us. If we build communism, they will come. And so now this has been instantiated in New York. Will the people in New York, very liberal city, but will they show up for an avowed socialist who is saying things that will clearly run the rich out of the city so that their tax base vanishes and possibly bring down the wrath of Donald Trump from D.C.? So, this is a moment. You don't hear Chuck Schumer going out and endorsing this guy, but people they're not endorsing him because they don't want to be left behind. They don't want the communist train to take off without them in it. So just to show you who this guy is, I think this guy is a stunningly sleazy person. I think this guy is the genuine sleaze. I mean, he is in the Obama mold in that he's, knows how to talk around his radicalism while hiding it, but also signaling it to people, which Obama did. But Obama was I never felt Obama was sleazy. I just felt he was sinister, totally different thing. This guy is sinister, but he's also just sleazy. There's something about him that I can barely look at him. He has the smile and the, style and all this, but he's really awful. So he's on, Meet the Press with Kristen Welker, an established left-wing, biased journalist. And she keeps asking him, she asks him 3 times to condemn the phrase globalize the intifada. Just listen, I'll only give you 2 of them because it would just go on too long. But here he is being given, 2 chances to condemn a phrase. And let's remember, this is the Intifada is an historical event. It's not like with jihad, where every time they blow somebody up and say it was jihad, they say, well, jihad is an inner struggle, until the bomb goes off, and then your inners are outer, or outer, your innards are outer. So then they would say but this is not the same thing. Intifada is a historical assault on the Jews, and to globalize the Intifada means to bring violence upon the Jews, genocidal violence on Jewish people everywhere and the West in general. So listen to this exchange with Kristen Welker and Zoran.
Do you condemn that phrase, globalize the Intifada?
That's not language that I use. The language that I use and the language that I will continue to use to lead this city is that which speaks clearly to my intent, which is an intent grounded in a belief in universal human rights. And ultimately, that's what is the foundation of so much of my politics, the belief that freedom and justice and safety are things that, to have meaning, have to be applied to all people, and that includes Israelis and Palestinians as alike.
But do you actually condemn it? I think that's the question and the outstanding issue that a number of people, both of the Jewish faith and beyond, have. Do you condemn that phase, globalize the Intifada, which a lot of people hear as a call to violence against Jews?
I've heard from many Jewish New Yorkers who have shared their concerns with me, especially in light of the horrific attacks that we saw in Washington, D.C. and in Boulder, Colorado, about this moment of anti-Semitism in our country.
So this just goes on. And she does it again. She gives him a third shot, a third bite at the apple. No, he is not condemning this phrase. He is sending a signal, and this is going on in England all the time. He's sending a signal to his Muslim voters that he is on their side. And this is great for Trump. I mean, Trump is like lapping it up like a cat with cream. He's just sitting there going like, okay, as far as I'm concerned, this guy now represents the Democrat Party. And again, his humor is always deadpan, but it's frequently his humor is serious. And here he is on Mamdani is cut 7.
I think he's terrible. He's a communist. The last thing we need is a communist. I said there will never be socialism in the United States. Now we have a communist. I think he's bad news, and I think I'm going to have a lot of fun with him, watching him, because he has to come right to this building to get his money. And don't worry, he's not going to run away with anything. I think he's, frankly, I've heard he's a total nut job. I think the people of New York are crazy. If they go this route, I think they're crazy. We will have a communist for the first time, really, a pure, true communist.
And so a lot of people, middle of the road liberals are saying, well, he's not a communist, but he is. He is a communist. That, again, when you actually become the candidate for mayor of New York, everything you've ever said is going to be dug up. Every clip that they can find, every interview you ever gave is going to be dug up. That's why Barack Obama was so sinister. He had left no trail. He left very little trail behind. And of course, the press would just erase it whenever they found it. Like when they found the church that he was going to was an anti-American church, he gave this stupid speech about it. And the New York Times was like, oh, it was a symphony. David Brooks, it was a symphony of a speech. It was a wonderful speech. It was a snow job to cover up how anti-American Barack Obama is. This guy is not going to get away with that because they've got the goods on him. So here is an interview he did in 2021. Just a little snippet of it. He's at a meeting of the Young Democratic Socialists of America. Okay, just remember that as you listen to this brief clip. And here's what he says, his plans for America, cut 8.
We have to continue to elect more socialists, and we have to ensure that we are unapologetic about our socialism. There are also other issues that we firmly believe in, whether it's BDS, right? Or whether it is the end goal of seizing the means of production.
Seizing the means of production. Let's just go over that for a brief minute. Obviously, seizing the means of production is communism. It's that is not socialism. That is communism. Seizing the means of production. This is 2021. This is not that long ago. This is not like, oh, I was only 13 at the time and it was a tweet and I said a bad word for gay people. This is like a plan. And on top of this, he's talking about BDS. Now, we all know that BDS is Bachelor of Dental Surgery. No, it's not. It's the boycott, divestment, sanctions idea that is meant to destroy the state of Israel. And the Young Democratic Socialists of America, you can go on their site, they hate Israel. They love the terrorists. They love, this is just amazing because I see Glenn Greenwald doing this all the time, just saying, the poor people in Gaza. And yes, the poor people in Gaza, because they elected a terrorist organization, Hamas, which was run by Iran until Iran got bombed by Donald Trump. So Mamdani is basically signing on to the destruction of Israel, the support of Hamas, the support of Iranian terrorism. That's what he's running on. And the Jews in this country, especially the non-religious Jews, the leftist Jews, they're the first people into the hate Jews poll. I mean, maybe they'll bump into a couple of right-wing commentators on the way over. You know who they are. But still, the Jews love hating themselves. There's nothing Jews like better than hating themselves. And they love to display their virtue by hating Israel. But this is serious stuff. I mean, this is having a mayor of the most Jewish city in America, the most important city in America, who hates the state of Israel and wants BDS to boycott and divest of it in order to stop it from having any kind of economic power. That is amazing. That is just amazing. So we have this guy who's a socialist. And then you have to ask the question, well, why are people going after socialists? Why do they want to be socialists? Now, the Wall Street Journal, I mean, how many times does this thing have to fail, right? The Wall Street Journal, Matthew Hennessy is the deputy editorial features editor. He wrote a piece, Capitalism Needs Champions. Zohran Mamdani's victory shows that socialism is on the march. If you believe in free markets, it's time to speak up. In this twilight struggle, the truth has an advantage. Socialism is incompatible with human nature. People are driven to build, to invest, to strive and be productive, to pursue their own family's well-being above all. Socialism subverts these impulses. It requires coercion to achieve anything resembling success. It's an intellectual lab leak Misery follows wherever it's tried. All true. Markets are more than efficient. They're also moral, he says. Markets enable willing and mutually beneficial exchange among free people. They abominate coercion. They encourage a belief that tomorrow will be better than today. No one would bother investing absent an expectation that it will pay off. Capitalism is synonymous with confidence in the future. No, the problem isn't capitalism, he says. The problem is complacency. Capitalists take too much for granted. They assume the product is so good it will sell itself. Mr. Mamdani's victory shows otherwise. Now, here's where I disagree with Matthew Hennessy. It's a smart article, and I'm not, ragging on it, but it's just not true that capitalism is moral. If you listen to what he says, he himself actually undercuts his own point. He says markets are more than efficient, they're also moral. Markets enable willing and mutually beneficial exchange. Markets enable morality. Socialism is immoral. It is immoral because it is inherently authoritarian. Before the money can be redistributed, it has to be taken away by the government. Once the government can take away your money, it is your king. It is your master. You are its slave. You are working. They spend the money. That's what a slave does. The slave works. The master spends the money. That's what socialism is. It is immoral because it means that everybody has to act together, which means somebody's got to make the decision of where the right and wrong of it is, and it's going to be the government. What capitalism does is it enables morality because it enables individual free action. Free markets have to exist in a state of freedom. Freedom enables people to become moral, and that's individuals is where morality takes place. Capitalism, prostitution is capitalism. Drug dealing, gambling, those are capitalism. So is deserting a town that depends on you in a country that nurtured you to build cheaper factories in Mexico or Taiwan or Red China. So is one guy making $1 zillion while his workers don't even get bathroom breaks. Those are all capitalism too. Capitalism enables morality, but morality has to be something that you bring to it. There was an article in the Free Press by former climate influencer Lucy Biggers. I helped AOC win. I understand the fantasy Zoran is selling. And she said, she was working on left-wing candidates, and she really liked Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She said she was beautiful, humble, and articulate, and had a spark of charisma. You could tell she was going places. And we both shared a fear of Donald Trump, a love of Bernie, and the need for real change from universal health care to climate action to free college. And they produced this video. She helped her produce this video. This is cut 9, where AOC says that she grew up in the South Bronx, which was one of the toughest neighborhoods in New York. It's cut 9.
I grew up seeing how one zip code really determines your destiny, and how public schools were different, hospitals were different, our access, our environment, our air was different, and it all had to go back to the issue of income inequality. And so knowing that, I went to school, I studied policy, I worked for the late Senator Kennedy, eventually turned to activism, and here I am running for Congress.
So, and she is adorable in those old videos, and everything she said there was untrue. She did not come from the South Bronx. She comes from a very nice neighborhood near Scarsdale. And I want to say everybody's acting as if this was just being exposed, but you got to give props to Michael Knowles. He's also from the same neighborhood, and he's exposed her years ago. It must be 5 years ago since he exposed her. And anyway, this lady who's writing about how much she liked her, she says, I'm now 35, a mother of 2, a homeowner. Like so many before me, I have grown up and my ideas have moderated. I no longer think that giving the government more of our money to run free programs is the right way to do things. Let's just spend time at the DMV and tell me if you want a government-run grocery store, as Zoran is proposing. I still have sympathy for young people who see inequality and poverty and want to do something about it. That is the point that I'm making, that young people are idealistic, and they should be idealistic, and all of us should be a little idealistic. We should all care about having a moral country and taking care of the poor and the people who can't make it, can't climb up the ladder, or are in some desperate circumstances. But those things are best done by human beings in their churches and temples and mosques. Those things are done by people who are moral, because it is individuals who are moral. No government is moral. All it does is allow people to become moral by leaving them free. And so we have to talk about more than the fact, and Hennessy's just wrong about this, we have to talk more about the fact that capitalism works and socialism doesn't work. Yes, we have to talk about that, but we also have to talk about the fact that it only works in a framework of morality. This is why Barack Obama shot down private colleges and discouraged private charity. He would say, people on the left will say there shouldn't be private charity because they can't do it as well as the government can do it. And the point is, charity is only charity when individuals do it. And when companies spy on us or dump us or put profits above people, they diminish our lives. And when they want us to have a consumer economy where our prosperity depends on us buying a lot of junk we don't need and living for the new thing, that's degrading to our lives. And I think young people know it, and I think all of us should know it. Our prosperity shouldn't depend on us buying crap. It should depend on us creating things, creating businesses, creating families, and loving the things that we can love, like art and joyful things, the life of the family. These are the gifts of God for the people of God. And we have to hold businesses and politicians responsible to those priorities. And we have to talk about those priorities and explain that they come from us. And that's why we have to be free. We have to be free, not so there's capitalism. We have to have capitalism so we can be free. And we have to be free in order that we can choose morality. And that is the way this has to work. I mean, it cannot work any other way. It's the way we should be talking about it. We should say that socialism is immoral, but capitalism allows for people to become moral. And then we have to talk about what that looks like. As we celebrate Independence Day this July, we're reminded of the freedoms our founders fought to protect, especially the fundamental right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But here's something that might surprise you. There are still Americans today whose most basic right, the right to life itself, is at risk. That's where PreBorn comes in. They're doing incredible work through their network of clinics, offering free ultrasounds to women facing unplanned pregnancies. Here's what's amazing. These ultrasounds don't just provide medical care, they're actually saving lives. When a mom sees her baby on that screen, hears that heartbeat, everything changes. But PreBorn isn't just about the baby. They truly care for these women too. They provide love, support, and resources during what can be an incredibly difficult time. Look, if we really believe what our Constitution says, that all people are created equal with unalienable rights, then that has to include the smallest and most vulnerable among us. These babies deserve the same rights our founders declared: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You can be part of this mission for just $28. That's the cost of one life-saving ultrasound. Or you can sponsor 5 ultrasounds for $140. To donate, just dial pound 250 and say baby. That's pound 250 baby, or visit preborn.com/Klavan. That's preborn.com/KLAVAN. Chapter 3, Why the Fourth is Fabulous. The 250th anniversary of our country is coming up. This is 249, this July 4th, and you're probably, if you're listening to this, it's somewhere around July 4th. And we've had, Jeff Anderson from the American Main Street Initiative talking about not just, planning a celebration for the 250th anniversary, but also clearing out some of these people who have infiltrated our systems and are turning all our monuments into, guilt-ridden guilt trips. So, they're changing the Jefferson Memorial so that the museum in the basement, doesn't praise this guy who was the founder, one of the great founders of our country, but instead it's all about slavery. You go to his house and there are all the libraries about slavery. And, it's just, I think it's interesting. I think slavery is interesting. I think slavery should be talked about, but you don't go to Jefferson's house because there were slaves there. You go to Jefferson's house because Jefferson was there and his greatness is there. And I think that this is really important. It's important, this has been bled out of our country by the left. I'm sure many of you remember, in opposition to MAGA, we had people, Andrew Cuomo, for instance, saying America was make America great again. It was never great, and their argument was always that by saying "make America great again," what he was talking about was going back to days of bigotry, or going back to days before we had wonderful things like abortion and all this stuff. Bill Clinton says it's a dog whistle for racism. Michelle Obama, when she's not attacking her husband, says, the idea of American greatness ignores the experience. So we're supposed to always be apologizing, always be talking about how bad we are and how we have to, we're striving toward our ideals. We're not living out our ideals. A record low, according to Gallup poll, 58% of U.S. adults say they are extremely or very proud to be an American. A record low, 58%, which is down 9 percentage points from last year and 5 points below the prior low from 2020. Most of these Democrats are mostly responsible for the drop in U.S. pride this year, with 36% saying they are extremely or very proud. 36% of Democrats are proud, extremely proud or very proud to be Americans, where, of course, and independents as well have hit a low point of 53%. Republicans' level of national pride has been much steadier, typically registering above 90%. So Republicans are basically holding pride. So how do we talk about America if we are proud and we want other people to be proud? Obviously, you can't just scream, boo-rah in their face. That's not the way to do this. But I'm sick of phrases like America is not perfect, but, or despite our sins, or we've done many bad things, but. I am sick of this, and here's why. Those phrases are for children. They're for emotional children. I wouldn't even say children. I would say teenagers, adolescents, who just discovered that even good places do bad things, that this country is not perfect. Who needs to say that? What adult needs to say the country is not perfect? And what child needs to hear it? I mean, nobody's perfect. Nothing is perfect. Anything with human beings in it is full of badness and sins and all that stuff. And I was mentioned Glenn Greenwald before. He's a master of this technique of finding things that were done badly. So he'll say, oh, look, here are two innocent people who died in Gaza, right? And so Israel is bad. Nobody's talking about how Israel is bad, which is a joke. See, he's a master of that, but that's baloney, because every country does bad things, and every country has people in it who are evil, and there's going to be evil coming out of every country. What matters is what a country stands for, and a great country stands for great things. Israel stands for freedom and equality and political equality. It just does. You go there, you will see it. You will see that everybody is treated equally, that women have rights, that gay people have rights, that Muslims have rights. They pray, in Jerusalem, they pray in the streets. When the hour comes, they put down their blanket in the streets and pray in the streets. They can rise to any level. That's what they stand for. The people in Gaza stand for death and hatred and genocide, and so their country sucks. Clint Eastwood, who is just an idol of mine. I mean, he's just a great, great artist. He made one of my books, True Crime, into a film, and what a thrill it was to see Eastwood playing a character that I had created. But he made this mistake, and I sort of said it at the time, when he made these two films about Iwo Jima, and one of them showed it from the American side, and the other one showed it from the Japanese side, and it showed Japanese atrocities, but then it showed Americans committing atrocities, and showed a wounded American and a Japanese general becoming friends. And all that is great. Of course, individuals in countries can become friends. And of course, individuals in all countries commit atrocities during war. War stinks. But that is really not the point of that story. The Japanese were the imperial Japanese, not the Japanese today, but the imperial Japanese were a culture of atrocity, a culture of beheading, a culture where life meant nothing, where it was held cheap, a country where people who were captured, and were POWs were tortured relentlessly and sometimes beheaded. We did not have that country. We did bad things. Everybody does bad things in a war, terrible things in a war. Our country still stood for freedom. Our country still stood for the things that matter. And that is what this makes a country great. We're always talking about the great things we've done. And then we'll say this country is great because it ended Nazism and it ended Soviet communism. The country is not great because it ended Nazism and Soviet communism. It ended Nazism and Soviet communism because it was great. And it was great because of the things it stood for. It was great because of the words that are in our founding documents. It was great because of men like Washington and men like Jefferson, who had ideas that they instantiated at the risk of their lives. They brought them into being at the risk of their lives. George Washington gave away the kingship of a continent to make freedom a real thing, a solid material thing, so you can say, oh, he also did this bad thing. He did this bad. Everybody does bad things. And so it's time just to talk about the greatness. And especially at our monuments, especially in our celebrations, there is nothing wrong with pausing on a July 4th or the 250th anniversary, or indeed the entire 250th year of our life as the longest operating republic on the planet, nothing wrong with pointing out that there were no republics when we got here, and now everybody calls themselves a republic, whether they are or not. Why? Because everybody wanted to be America. We got to stop shuffling around and being unproud. We don't have to be jingoistic. We don't have to say we never do anything wrong. We simply have to stop bringing up the fact that we're imperfect, because it's a given. It's a given. The things we stand for are perfect indeed. The things we stand for, the freedoms we stand for, the fact that we, more than any country that's ever existed, allow individuals to find their own way, because that is how and where morality takes place. So many people say to me, it's amazing you don't look a day over 150. And I know that's, considering how old I actually am, that's amazing. But I live a healthy lifestyle. I exercise, I work out, I walk around, I sing a happy song, and I use balance of nature fruits and veggies. It's the most convenient way to get whole fruits and vegetables daily, especially if you are focused on creating a healthier, happier lifestyle. Nature's pretty good at giving us the nutrients we need through our fruits and vegetables. So Balance of Nature takes those fruits and vegetables, freeze dries them, turns them into powder, and then puts them into a capsule. You take your fruit and veggie capsules every day, and then your body knows what to do with them. Balance of Nature is just one ingredient of a balanced lifestyle. It doesn't mean to replace a healthy diet, exercise, sleep, any other healthy habits. It's intended to be used in concert with those healthy habits. I like it because it doesn't get, juice in my beard, and I still get my fruits and veggies. Go to balanceofnature.com and use promo code Klavan for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. Plus, get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That's balanceofnature.com, promo code Klavan. And you're thinking, please, oh, please tell me how to spell Klavan so I can get this wonderful deal. It's Klavan. Final chapter, how should we talk about God? So I think the person I'm most impressed with right now in the Trump administration, aside from Trump himself, is Marco Rubio. I think we all kind of feel this way. The guy has grown into his shoes somehow. He's just a much, much bigger figure than he's ever shown himself to be before. Very funny. He's got a great sense of humor, but also incredibly incisive and sharp and not intimidated by the press, just really doing a terrific, terrific job. And I heard him, when he was sworn in, he had this moment right after he was sworn in, cut 15.
And I want to end by thanking Almighty God and my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. That is truly the singular purpose of our lives. It's the most important priority. It's the only thing that will matter when we take our last breath on this earth. But this is an extraordinary opportunity that would not have been possible without God's blessings. I'm honored.
So I find this incredibly refreshing, the way he talks about his Catholic faith, the way he, says he disagrees with the Pope when the Pope says we should open our borders. He says that's not compassionate, but he also says, the Pope is the Pope, and the church has been there for thousands of years, and there's no other organization like it, and he expresses his faith in his church and in his Savior. And I think that is a beautiful thing, and we need a lot more of it and a lot less of people doing it in an aggressive and off-putting way. I mean, I also believe in the Roman Catholic Church, but I also believe in the Russian Orthodox Church and the Anglican Church. And there are churches that I think a church is there to bring you into a relationship with God. I think the center of Christianity is your relationship with Jesus Christ. And I think a church is there to do that. And so I think you should always be willing to speak the name of Christ. I think you should always be willing to say what you are in a humble way that is not an assault on other people, which is in fact following the advice of St. Paul, who said, do not put up a stumbling block to the Greeks, namely the Gentiles or the Jews, saying don't get in the way of their coming to faith if they are going to want to come to faith. And of course, if you're just carping at them all the time and attacking them and saying horrible things about them, that is exactly what they're doing. And it's always a good thing to remember, that we're all children of God, first of all, but also we're striving in the darkness for a light that none of us can fully see. I mean, anybody who thinks he's got a full piece of God, even the Catholic Church says something, we're the fullness of truth. Well, nobody's the fullness of truth, because God cloaks himself in darkness on purpose to keep us free. And America is a Christian country, which means that every value that we have is emanates from Christianity. But that doesn't mean that the important basis of faith cannot be there in other religions. I mean, obviously, I think we should never shy away from stating our faith, from naming our God, naming our Lord and Savior. We shouldn't shy away from that at all. But humility, when we do it, I think is an exercise in Christian faith. I mean, I think that is part of it. If you ever ask yourself, why did they used to kill people over religion? And they don't now. Why is that? So obviously some people still do. But, it used to be the Christians would burn a guy at the stake because he translated the Bible in a way that the church didn't approve of. And I think that is kind of extreme, no matter how often we sometimes like to do it. And I think because it is July 4th, and because it is a national holiday, and because we are a country of many faiths and a country of many different kinds of people, it's time to think about, as Christians, and I would say also as Jews, the way that we talk about God that doesn't put up stumbling blocks for people to come to him, because this is the moment. This is going to happen now. It's already happening. People are flocking to specifically the Catholic Church, because I think that their theology is so well worked out, and their ceremonies are so beautiful. Their rituals are so beautiful. But still, I think it's happening in other churches as well. And so you want to know, how do we talk about God to encourage this without getting in people's faces and alienating them and putting up what St. Paul called stumbling blocks? I think the thing to remember is that when you look at the world, the material world, things just happen. We're here, we die. Somebody punches somebody and gets away with it. Somebody kills somebody and gets away with it. Another person is a beautiful person and dies of a disease when they're young. Things seem to make no sense. They come out of nowhere. They seem random. But we believe that there is something beyond this life. And we have plenteous evidence that that's true. And I'm not even talking about miracles. I'm talking about the fact that you love your spouse or you love your kids. That, when you think about that, is that love just a chemical thing that goes on? Is that just a chemical that's released in your body and then you feel love? Or do you feel love and the chemical is then released in your body? I would argue that it's the second, that you feel love, you experience love, and then the chemical communicates that to your body. Let's say you're married and you really adore your spouse, and let's say there were a magical black box from which no information escaped, and you walked into the black box and there was, let's say you're a guy, there was a beautiful girl waiting there to sleep with you, and you knew you could sleep with her and no information would leak out from that black box. So you could sleep with her and there would be no repercussions in the material world. Even though you might succumb in the instance, you might, but that would continue to be wrong. And also that it would warp your relationship to your wife when you came out, because even though no information got out, even though she didn't know, you would know. And that would mean that every word you said to her from then on would be stained with lies. That's the spiritual world. That is a real thing. That is not a construct. That is not a social construct. It exists in every corner of the earth, that moral world. And that takes place in the imagination. And the people get upset when I say that, because they think that means that it's imaginary. But no, the imagination is an organ of perception, like the eyes or the ears, that sees something that is really there and translates it into humanity. Light doesn't look like light to God. It looks like light to us, and our eyes turn it into light. And so that experience that we have of morality is not pure morality, but it is human morality. And our imaginations order the random events of life. Events of life look random, but that imagination that is infused with the consciousness that is made in the image of God orders that. And what churches do is they train the imagination to see the unseen correctly. That's what churches do. That is what your priest should be trying to do, or your rabbi should be trying to do. That is what Jesus is trying to do when he says, hey, look, I'm the one who knows. Here is what it looks like to live a godly life. It is training the imagination to see the world as it is supposed to be. And so while I sincerely believe that there is a time to argue your faith specifically, and I've sat with friends and had wonderful, wonderful arguments, sometimes ferocious arguments about why one faith is better than another, or why one doctrine is better, or why I don't accept a doctrine that's very dear to them. Those are things that I think are very beautiful, and I always feel the Holy Spirit is involved in those conversations and is making something out of them, even if we don't come to an agreement. But I also think at a time like July 4th, when we're celebrating our nation as a whole and we're celebrating everything in it, it is a good thing to talk about the basis of God. I was reading a wonderful article by Dan Mahoney. It's just a brilliant, brilliant guy and a very graceful writer. He's writing in Claremont Review about Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill said that the Jews gave a gift to society, was that the idea that there is only one God, a universal God, a God of nations, a just God, a God who would punish in another world a wicked man dying rich and prosperous, a God from whose service the good of the humble and of the weak and poor was inseparable. And I think that's beautiful, and not to, mess with Winston Churchill, but I would add a God of love whose creation is an act of love, and who is known in love and through the love of our neighbors. I think that when you are acting like that, when you are acting that out, you are communicating Jesus Christ, even without mentioning his name, at those times when maybe his name should be silent so that people can get his nature. That was very important to me as I made my journey to Christ, that sometimes Christ would speak to me and say, you don't have to know my name. You just have to know this. You just have to know who I am. Because in the old days, when they used the word name, like a name above all names, that meant the nature of him. And if you can communicate the nature of Christ, you have gone a long way to bringing people to the name of Christ. Jesus said to his fellow Jews, he said, you are the light of the world. He said, a city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. That was Jesus, a Jew, speaking to the Jews and giving that wisdom to the Gentiles through his life and death and resurrection. So when you find God, you should become an advertisement for God, a living billboard. And you should ask yourself, is that what you are? When you open your mouth, is that what you are? Because, sometimes the left, sells us all these pleasures and they say, oh, don't worry, the government will take care of morality. But no, it's on you. The government will never be moral. It will never be moral. Only you. It can only leave the opportunity for you to be moral. And when the right talks about money and, the power of our military and all that's fine. But all that has nothing to do with your becoming a light to the world. This is a free country. So many people, many people are going to go astray, and many will be lost along the way. That's freedom. That is freedom, choosing the wrong thing. But if enough of us find the light and let the light shine out of us, then we and this wonderful country can still be the light of the world.
We're going to win so much. We're going to win at every level. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We're going to win economically. We're going to win with the economy. We're going to win with military. We're going to win with healthcare and for our veterans. We're going to win with every single facet.
Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-yay. My, oh my, what a wonderful day.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. You'll say, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore.
I feel pretty, oh so pretty. I feel pretty and witty and gay.
We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
This month, Tax Network USA proudly celebrates our nation's birthday, honoring freedom, resilience, and financial independence. And to mark the occasion, they're offering 10% off all services through July 4th. If you're dealing with back taxes or missed the April 15th deadline, do not wait. The IRS is rapidly stepping up enforcement. Penalties can add up quickly, up to 5% per month, maxing out at 25% of your total tax bill just for not filing. That's on top of what you already owe. But there's good news. Tax Network USA can still help you turn things around. Whether you're self-employed, run a business, or your books are a complete mess, their team knows how to cut through the chaos and find solutions that work. Your consultation is always free, and getting ahead of the problem now could help you avoid harsh penalties, wage garnishments, or surprise bank levies. Take the first step. Call 800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Klavan. Don't forget, you'll get 10% off all services through July 4th as part of their celebration of our nation's birthday. Regain control of your finances with expert help from Tax Network USA. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, how do you spell IRS? It's Klavan. On this Independence Day, join DailyWire Plus and get 6 months absolutely free. When you sign up for an annual membership, we will cover half of it. No gimmicks, just unlimited access to everything we offer. That includes our #1 documentary of the decade, Am I Racist?, Jordan B. Peterson's powerful new series Parenting, Ben Shapiro's no-holds-barred late-night show, Ben After Dark. You get it all ad-free, uncensored, and on demand. Go to dailywireplus.com and get 6 months free right now. All right, Klavan Klapbacks.
We have to continue to elect more socialists.
So it's commies.
All right, we're running out of time. I've only got time for one quick clapback, but Klavan Klapbacks, both Klavan and Klapbacks with a K at dailywire.com. Send in your questions. Your Lordship, the mighty Klavan, I've listened to your show for years and have patiently waited to put your dating advice into practice. Now I've met a girl who really seems incredible, Christian, beautiful, smart, athletic, adventurous, the whole shebang. But we're only together for the summer. I'm going back to law school for another year, and she's headed back to her undergrad for 2. We've only had the chance to go on 1 date so far. How do I know if it's worth pursuing her further when we have so little time together? More importantly, how do I know if she's the right one? Humbly and with immeasurable gratitude, Mason. She's the right one. Come on. What are you, nuts? She's obviously the right one. You got the whole summer to date her. Keep dating her through the summer. By the end, you will know if you don't know now. You know, I mean, why? Don't make it complicated. You were made to know these things. She sounds great. At the end of the summer, since she has to go back to her school and you have to go back to law school, what you say to her is this: I know we've only known each other for the summer, but I have really strong feelings for you. I feel this is really something special. I don't want it to go away. Let us keep up this relationship, and see what she says. She may say get lost, but I don't think she will. I think she will say great, and then you continue the relationship, on FaceTime and visiting and seeing each other until you get out of law school, and then you get a great job and you ask her to marry you. That's my plan. And do that and you will be happy for the rest of your life. All right, we're going to stop there. If you are a member, you have member block yet to go. If not, have a Klavanless 4th. What can I tell you? I want you to have a great 4th, but I know that the Klavanless darkness will hang over your head like a thundercloud, just waiting to strike you down with the lightning of Klavanless misery. But have a good time anyway, and come back next Friday for the Andrew Klavan Show. And the members, you're still with me. Come to member block.